The gleaming Tesla Model S sat quietly at pump number 7, a stark contrast to its owner's well-worn work clothes. Jack Morrison's calloused hands moved with military precision as he cleaned the spotless windshield, a habit born from years of maintaining millions of dollars worth of military aircraft. Few customers at Pete's Gas and Go in the quiet town of Pine Valley would guess that the man in faded jeans and a work shirt had not only earned multiple medals for valor, but had also built a tech empire worth 9 figures after leaving the service. Even fewer would guess that this morning's routine stop would awaken a part of him he'd tried to leave behind. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the empty forecourt as Jack methodically went about his routine. The sound of approaching motorcycles shattered the dawn quiet, a pack of custom choppers roaring into the gas station like thunder. Their chrome exhaust pipes gleamed as menacingly as their riders' leather cuts, emblazoned with the emblem of the Steel Wolves MC. Jack barely glanced their way, continuing his precise movements with the squeegee. "Hey, old-timer!" The lead rider's voice carried the casual arrogance of someone used to intimidation. "That's a mighty fine car for someone dressed like a janitor." Laughter rippled through the group as they dismounted, their boots scraping against the concrete. Jack maintained his steady rhythm, each stroke exact, deliberate. He'd learned long ago that perfection required patience, whether maintaining an F-35's targeting systems or building the algorithms that had made his fortune. The leader, a tall man with a scraggly beard and arms covered in crude tattoos, swaggered. "Get closer. I'm talking to you, Grandpa," he sneered, though Jack couldn't have been more than 45. "What's a guy like you doing with a ride like that? Deal some drugs on the side?" "Just keeping things clean," Jack replied quietly, his voice carrying the soft drawl of rural Georgia. His movements never faltered, each pass of the squeegee precise as a surgeon's scalpel. Young Billy Chen, whose family owned the gas station's attached convenience store, watched nervously from behind the counter. The 16-year-old had grown fond of Jack over the past year, fascinated by the quiet man who came in every morning, bought the same black coffee, and always had time to help Billy with his physics homework. "Mr. Morrison," Billy called out, his voice cracking slightly with worry. "Maybe you should—" "It's all right, Billy." Jack cut him off gently. "Everything's fine." The gang leader's eyes narrowed at the exchange. "Morrison, huh?" He turned to his companions. "Boys, seems like we got ourselves some kind of local hero here. Probably thinks he's better than us with his fancy Tesla and his—" He reached out to smear his grimy hand across Jack's freshly cleaned windshield. Jack's hand caught the biker's wrist before it made contact. The movement was almost casual, but the grip was iron. For the first time, Jack looked directly at the man, his grey eyes carrying the weight of battles the biker couldn't imagine. "Don't," Jack said softly. The biker tried to pull away but found himself locked in place. Confusion flickered across his face, followed by the first traces of fear as he realized his arm wouldn't budge. His companions shifted uneasily, hands drifting toward concealed weapons. "Let go of me, old man," the leader growled, but there was a tremor in his voice now. "You don't know who you're messing with." "3 Purple Hearts, 2 Silver Stars, and the Air Force Cross," a new voice called out. Colonel Sarah Martinez stepped out of her patrol car, her sheriff's badge catching the morning light. 20 years special operations, including leading the most successful combat search and rescue unit in modern history. She approached slowly, one hand resting casually on her holster. "That's who you're messing with, Derek. Though these days, Jack prefers debugging code to debugging hostage situations." Jack released the biker's wrist, turning back to his windshield as if nothing had happened. Derek rubbed his arm, trying to mask his discomfort with bravado. "This ain't over," he muttered. But Sarah's presence and the revelation of Jack's background had taken the wind out of his sails. "Actually, it is," Sarah replied firmly, unless you want me looking too closely at those bike registrations, or maybe having a chat with Agent Roberts about certain activities along the state line. The bikers mounted up quickly, their earlier swagger replaced by poorly concealed unease. As they roared away, Billy emerged from the store, carrying Jack's usual coffee. "Mr. Morrison," the boy said hesitantly, "I had no idea you were... the Colonel said..." Jack accepted the coffee with a small smile. "Just a man trying to keep things clean, Billy. Sometimes life gets messy, but that doesn't mean we stop trying." He glanced at Sarah. "Though I appreciate the backup, Colonel, didn't know you were back in town." Sarah watched the dust trail of the departing bikers. "Just transferred in as the new sheriff. Pine Valley needed someone who understood its unique situation." She turned to Jack. "Speaking of which, we need to talk. The Steel Wolves aren't just another biker gang. They're connected to something bigger, something that might require your particular set of skills." Jack sighed, looking at his reflection in the now spotless windshield. The face that looked back was still the quiet tech entrepreneur the town knew, but now carrying echoes of the warrior he'd been. Sometimes the past didn't stay in the past, no matter how carefully you cleaned the slate. "Come by the workshop later," he told Sarah. "Seems like Pine Valley might need more than just clean windows and computer code." He folded the squeegee with precise movements, each action measured and deliberate. The morning sun had climbed higher, burning away the shadows, but darker clouds were gathering on the horizon. Change was coming to Pine Valley, and Jack Morrison would need every skill from both his lives to face what lay ahead. Sarah's patrol car rolled through the winding mountain roads leading to Jack's workshop. The simple wooden sign at the end of the gravel driveway read, "Morrison Precision Technologies," though the sleek single-story building looked more like a luxury cabin than a tech company's headquarters. Behind the modern glass and cedar facade stood a separate metalworking shop, its steel doors secured by a state-of-the-art security system. Inside his office, Jack reviewed code on multiple screens, while Sarah laid out surveillance photos across his polished oak desk. The images showed members of the Steel Wolves meeting with suited figures at remote locations along the state line. "They're just the muscle," Sarah explained, pointing to a particularly clear shot of Derek, the biker from the gas station. "The real players are these men. Federal agents have been tracking a syndicate moving experimental military tech through this region, components that shouldn't exist outside classified facilities." Jack's fingers paused over his keyboard. "Quantum processing cores," he said quietly. "They're after the Q-core prototypes." Sarah's eyebrows rose. "How did you—" "Because I designed them," Jack interrupted, swiveling his chair to face her. "The original architecture, at least, before I left the service. The cores were supposed to revolutionize battlefield communications, but the power requirements made them impractical. At least that's what my final report said. But that wasn't the whole truth, was it?" Jack stood, moving to a wall-mounted screen displaying complex schematics. The cores worked perfectly, too perfectly. They could crack any encryption, predict enemy movements with near-perfect accuracy, even interface directly with pilots' neural systems. I buried the research because it was too dangerous. And now someone's figured out how to make them work, Sarah concluded grimly. Before Jack could respond, Billy Chen burst into the office out of breath. "Mr. Morrison, they're back. The Steel Wolves. They're at the store, threatening Dad about protection money." Jack's expression hardened. He moved to a painting on the wall, swinging it aside to reveal a biometric safe. Inside lay not weapons, but a sleek, tactical vest and what looked like advanced communication gear. "You still keep your equipment ready," Sarah observed. "Old habits," Jack replied, donning the vest with practiced efficiency. "Some things you don't unlearn." He turned to Billy. "Stay here, monitor the security feeds. Sarah—" "Right behind you," she said, checking her sidearm. They arrived at Pete's Gas and Go to find 5 bikes parked haphazardly across the lot. Through the store windows, Derek and his men were menacing Mr. Chen while two others emptied the register. Jack parked his Tesla directly behind their bikes, blocking their escape route. "You sure about this?" Sarah asked as they approached. "It's been 5 years since you ran an operation." Jack's movements had changed, his casual stride replaced by the balanced walk of a predator. "Some things are like riding a bike," he said, softly. "Besides, this isn't an operation. This is protecting our town." They entered the store silently, but Derek spotted them immediately. "Well, well," he sneered, "the rich boy and his pet sheriff. This ain't your business, Morrison." "Actually, it is," Jack replied, his voice carrying the quiet authority that had once commanded elite rescue teams. "Pine Valley is my home. These people are under my protection." One of the bikers laughed. "Protection? You and what army, old man?" "Interesting choice of words," Jack said, reaching slowly into his vest. Instead of a weapon, he withdrew what looked like a small remote. "You know what the problem is with modern bikes? Too much electronics." He pressed a button. Outside, all 5 motorcycles suddenly went dark, their electronic systems completely shut down. The bikers' swagger faltered as they realized their escape route was compromised. "That's impossible," Derek breathed. "Those bikes are analog." "Nothing's analog anymore," Jack corrected. "Not since you upgraded them with those experimental communication systems, the ones you got from your real employers." He took a step forward, and despite being outnumbered, the bikers retreated. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to return Mr. Chen's money, apologize, and then answer some questions about those quantum cores you've been transporting." Derek's hand moved toward his jacket. "Or what?" Jack's next movement was almost too fast to follow. Suddenly, Derek was face down on the counter, his arm twisted behind him at an angle that made him whimper. The other bikers reached for weapons but froze as Sarah's gun appeared. 20 years special operations, Sarah reminded them. "Want to see what else he can do?" "The cores," Jack said quietly, maintaining his hold on Derek. "Who's building them?" "I don't know their names," Derek gasped. "They just pay us to move equipment. The main lab is in the old mining complex outside town. That's all I know, I swear." Jack released him with a look of disgust. "Sarah, I believe these gentlemen have some outstanding warrants." "Among other things," she agreed, already calling for backup. As the situation was contained and local deputies arrived to take the bikers into custody, Mr. Chen approached Jack. "All these years," he said wonderingly, "you've been buying coffee, helping Billy with homework. We had no idea." "That was the point," Jack replied, straightening his vest. "But sometimes keeping a low profile means letting problems grow too big to ignore." He turned to Sarah. "The mining complex, it's not just about the cores, is it? There's more going on here." Sarah nodded grimly. "Much more. Pine Valley sits on what used to be a classified research facility. Those tunnels go deep, and not just into the mountain." Jack looked out at the gathering storm clouds. What had started as a simple confrontation at a gas station was expanding into something far larger, something that would require every skill. "And from both his lives, Billy's good with computers," he said thoughtfully. "Might be time to teach him more than just physics." The rain began to fall as deputies led the bikers away, but Jack Morrison was already planning his next moves. Sometimes keeping things clean meant getting your hands dirty first. Thunder rolled across Pine Valley as Jack stood in his workshop's secure room, surrounded by equipment he hadn't touched in years. Specialized tactical gear, advanced communication, systems, and prototype devices lined the walls, remnants of a life he'd tried to leave behind. His fingers moved across the familiar equipment with muscle memory that 5 years hadn't erased. "That's some collection," Sarah remarked from the doorway. She'd changed into tactical gear herself, her sheriff's uniform replaced by matte black combat attire. "Didn't realize Morrison Precision Technologies had a military division." "It doesn't," Jack replied, selecting specific items with practiced precision. This is personal inventory, things I developed but never put into production. Too dangerous. In the wrong hands, like the quantum cores? Similar principle. He held up what looked like a standard tactical headset. Neural interface prototypes. Military contract work led to the breakthroughs that built my company, but the real advances— He gestured to the room. These stayed off the books. Billy Chen sat at a nearby workstation, his young face illuminated by multiple monitors displaying security feeds and technical readouts. The boy had proven to be a quick study, absorbing Jack's crash course in advanced surveillance systems with prodigious speed. "Mr. Morrison," Billy called out, "I've got movement at the mining complex. Multiple vehicles entering through the south access road. These thermal signatures, they're moving some serious hardware." Jack moved to the screens, his eyes narrowing at the data. "They're accelerating their timeline. The confrontation at the gas station must have spooked them." He turned to Sarah. "How many deputies can you trust absolutely?" 4, maybe 5. The rest are too new to be certain. That's all we need." Jack retrieved a secure tablet, pulling up detailed schematics of the mining complex. The facility underneath isn't just research labs. It was designed as a fallback command center during the Cold War. 3 levels of tunnels, hardened against nuclear strikes, with multiple access points. Sarah studied the layouts. "You seem to know a lot about a classified installation." "I helped upgrade their systems before I left the service, before I realized what they were really working on down there." His face darkened with old memories. "The quantum cores were just the beginning. They're trying to create something bigger, a system that could predict and control human behavior on a massive scale." Thunder crashed closer as Billy pulled up new data. More vehicles arriving. "These ones are military grade, but something's wrong with their signatures. They're running way too hot for normal engines." "Quantum core power plants," Jack confirmed. "They've solved the containment problem." "That's what they needed the steel wolves for, moving the stabilization components piece by piece." Sarah checked her weapon. "So what's the play? We can't just raid a black site facility." "No," Jack agreed, "but we can shut it down from the inside." He pulled up more detailed schematics. The original facility ran on geothermal power. The main junction room is here, 2 levels down. Take out those controls, and their whole operation goes dark. They'll have backup generators. Not for the containment fields. Quantum cores are unstable without constant power. They'll have no choice but to shut down and evacuate. He turned to Billy. "This is where you come in. I need someone monitoring those power systems, ready to trigger a cascading failure on my mark." The boy straightened in his chair. "I can do it, Mr. Morrison. I've been studying the code you showed me." "This isn't homework, Billy," Jack said firmly. "If something goes wrong down there, you'll be our only warning system. Lives will depend on your attention to detail." "Like working on Dad's books," Billy replied with unexpected maturity. "One mistake can ruin everything. I understand precision." "Mr. Morrison, you taught me that." Jack studied the young man thoughtfully, seeing something of himself at that age, the same dedication to getting things exactly right. Finally, he nodded. "Sarah, get your deputies in position. If this works, they'll try to evacuate through these 3 exits. We need to control those points." He handed her several small devices, neural stunners, non-lethal, but they'll drop anyone not wearing our shielded gear. "And if this doesn't work?" she asked quietly. Jack's hand rested on a heavy case he hadn't opened yet. "Then I stop being precise and start being what they trained me to be." The storm was directly overhead now, rain hammering against the workshop's roof as they made final preparations. Jack fitted Billy with a specialized headset, connecting him directly to their tactical network. "Remember," he instructed, "watch the power fluctuations. If you see any spike above 15% in the containment fields, trigger the emergency shutdown and warn you immediately." Billy finished. "I won't let you down, Mr. Morrison." Jack squeezed the boy's shoulder. "You never have." He turned to Sarah. "1 hour until full dark. Then we move." As Sarah left to coordinate with her deputies, Jack opened the heavy case. Inside lay a suit of advanced combat armor, matte black and fitted with technology that shouldn't exist outside of classified labs. He'd helped design it for missions that officially never happened, missions that had earned him those medals Sarah had mentioned at the gas station. "Is that powered armor?" Billy asked in awe. "Let's hope we don't need to find out," Jack replied, but his hands moved over the suit with familiar reverence. 5 years of peaceful coding and clean living had been good for his soul, but perhaps not for Pine Valley. Sometimes keeping things clean meant getting properly equipped to handle the mess. The storm raged on as night approached, nature providing cover for what was to come. In his workshop, Jack Morrison prepared to remind some very dangerous people why he'd been chosen to design those quantum cores in the first place, and why he'd chosen to hide them away. Darkness had settled over Pine Valley, the storm providing perfect cover as Jack and Sarah approached the mining complex's southern perimeter. Their tactical gear absorbed the rain, the specialized fabric rendering them nearly invisible against the shadowed landscape. Through his enhanced optics, Jack could see heat signatures moving inside the facility's main entrance. Armed guards, maintaining a standard patrol pattern, 4 deputies in position, Sarah whispered, her voice coming clearly through their secure comms. Anderson and Chen are watching the north exit, Martinez and Rodriguez on the east. No movement at either. "Point. Billy, status?" Jack subvocalized, the neural interface picking up the subtle throat movements. "Power readings are steady." Billy's voice came back tense but focused. "I'm into their security network. They're running everything through quantum encrypted channels, but that interface you gave me is cracking them in real time." "Good. Keep monitoring. First sign of containment field fluctuation, you sound the alarm." Jack turned to Sarah. "Ready?" She nodded, checking her neural stunner. "Just like old times?" "You were never part of my old times," Jack replied with a slight smile. "Probably for the best. I wasn't as precise back then." They moved forward in perfect sync, years of training evident in every step. The rain masked their approach as they reached the facility's outer fence. Jack produced a small device, pressing it against the electrified barrier. Lights flickered briefly along the perimeter as localized systems went dark. 30 seconds until their diagnostics detect the breach, Billy warned. They were through in 10, the fence reactivating behind them with no sign of tampering. The guard patrol was approaching their position, 2 men in professional tactical gear carrying modified rifles that hummed with poorly shielded quantum tech. "Those weapons are unstable," Jack subvocalized. "Neural stunners only. One spark from conventional firearms could trigger a cascade." Sarah acknowledged with a hand signal. They split up, moving to flank the patrol. Jack watched through his tactical display as Sarah got into position. The guards never saw them coming. 2 quiet bursts from the neural stunners, and both men dropped silently. Jack caught one before he could fall, while Sarah secured the other. They dragged them into the shadows, efficiently stripping them of security badges and access cards. "Billy, we need a loop on their external cameras. Make it look like the storm is interfering with the feeds." "Already done, Mr. Morrison. But Chid, there's something else. I'm seeing massive power draws from the lower levels. Whatever they're running down there, it's pulling more energy than their containment fields should need." Jack's expression hardened behind his tactical mask. "They're not just containing the cores, they're building something bigger." He turned to Sarah. "Change of plans. We need to see what's in those lower levels before we shut it down." They used the stolen access cards to enter through a maintenance door, the facility's internal lighting casting everything in harsh fluorescent glare. Jack's enhanced optics automatically adjusted, identifying potential threats and mapping optimal routes through the complex. 2 more patrols ahead, Billy warned. "And Mr. Morrison, I'm detecting neural activity patterns similar to your interface designs, but much stronger. They're coming from the lowest level." "They've weaponized it." Jack breathed. "The quantum cores weren't just for power. They're trying to build a neural control system." "In English," Sarah requested as they ducked into a side corridor to avoid another patrol. "Imagine being able to override human consciousness within a given radius," Jack explained, checking his tactical display. "Control behavior, implant thoughts, rewrite memories. It's what they wanted the technology for all along, why I buried the research." A door hissed open nearby. Jack and Sarah pressed themselves into shadows as a man in an expensive suit walked past, flanked by armed guards. Jack's enhanced optics zoomed in on the man's face, running it through his recognition software. "Victor Kane," he sub-vocalized, "former military intelligence, now CEO of Quantum Dynamics Solutions. He was the one pushing hardest for weaponized applications of the core technology." "Mr. Morrison," Billy's voice was urgent, "power levels are spiking in the lower labs. They're powering up something big." As if in confirmation, a low hum began to vibrate through the facility's walls. Jack's neural interface picked up scattered fragments of data, quantum fluctuations that shouldn't be possible outside a controlled environment. "Sarah, get your deputies ready. If that system comes fully online, everyone within 50 miles could be affected." He reached into his tactical vest, removing a small quantum core of his own design. "I'm going to give them a little power problem." "That's not the plan," Sarah hissed. "We're supposed to shut it down, not engage directly." "Plans change when the situation changes." Jack's voice carried the absolute authority that had once commanded elite units. "Sometimes precision isn't about minimal action. Sometimes it's about striking exactly where it hurts most." The hum from below intensified as they made their way deeper into the facility. Jack could feel the quantum interference pressing against his neural shielding, trying to find a way in. Without protection, the average person would already be experiencing headaches, confusion, increasing susceptibility to suggestion. "Billy, how long until their system reaches critical power?" 10 minutes, maybe less." "Mr. Morrison, the power. Signatures are affecting local communications. If they bring it to full strength—" "They won't," Jack promised, checking his quantum core, "because we're about to show them what happens when you try to control something that should stay free." The storm raged on above as they descended toward the lower labs, but the real thunder was building beneath their feet, in the hands of men who thought they could cage consciousness itself. Jack Morrison had spent 5 years building a quiet life, trying to keep things clean and precise, but some messes couldn't be cleaned up gently. Sometimes precision meant knowing exactly how hard to hit and exactly where to make it hurt most. The descent to the facility's lowest level felt like entering another world. The stark industrial corridors gave way to a maze of quantum shielding and specialized containment systems. Jack's neural interface was picking up increasing interference, the air itself seeming to pulse with invisible energy. Power levels still. "A climbing," Billy reported, his voice breaking up slightly through the quantum static. "Whatever they're powering up, it's affecting all electronic systems within a mile radius. Dad just called. Cars are stalling on the highway. Phones are dead." "They're testing the range," Jack explained as they moved deeper, "seeing how far they can push the field before going full scale." He checked his tactical display, noting the increasing density of security forces ahead. "Sarah, your deputies need to fall back beyond the 1-mile mark. Keep civilians clear." "What about you?" Sarah asked, adjusting her neural stunner's frequency to compensate for the interference. "Your shielding can't hold against something this strong forever." "It doesn't have to." Jack removed his quantum core, studying its subtle glow. "Just long enough to deliver the package." They encountered their first real resistance at the entrance to the main lab complex. 4 guards in advanced tactical gear, their weapons humming with quantum enhancement. Jack's neural interface mapped their positions, calculating angles and timing with inhuman precision. "On my mark," he subvocalized. 3, 2, 1. They moved in perfect sync, neural stunners firing with surgical accuracy. The guards dropped before they could raise their weapons, the quantum enhancement in their gear actually making them more vulnerable to the precisely calibrated pulses. "Mr. Morrison!" Billy's voice was urgent. "New power signature! They're activating something in the central chamber. The readings are off the charts." Through the reinforced windows of the main lab, Jack could see what they'd built. A massive quantum core array filled the central chamber, dozens of cores linked together in a configuration that made his enhanced vision blur. Scientists in protective gear scurried around the base, while Victor Kane observed from a shielded control room above. "My God," Sarah breathed, "how many cores are they running?" "Too many," Jack replied grimly. "That configuration is exponentially unstable. One failure cascades through the entire system." He studied the setup through his tactical display. "Which is exactly what we're going to give them. Security breach in Sector 7, a voice blared over the facility's speakers. "All personnel, we have intruders." "So much for subtlety," Sarah muttered, raising her stunner as footsteps pounded toward them from multiple directions. Subtlety was never the plan. Jack's hands moved with practiced efficiency, attaching his quantum core to the lab's power distribution node. Sometimes the most precise solution is also the most direct. The firefight erupted in strobing bursts of neural energy. Security forces poured in from both directions, their quantum-enhanced weapons filling the air with crackling potential. Jack and Sarah worked back to back, their neural stunners dropping opponents with mechanical precision. "Billy, status!" Jack called as he ducked behind a containment barrier. "The whole valley's going dark, Mr. Morrison. Their field is affecting everything electronic within 2 miles now, but gee, there's something else. People are reporting headaches, confusion, lost time." "They're starting the neural override sequence," Jack confirmed. "Kane's not waiting for full power. He's going to burn out the cores, trying to extend the field too quickly." As if in response, the quantum array in the main chamber pulsed with increasing intensity. Through the windows, Jack could see scientists backing away from their instruments, clutching their heads. Even with his shielding, he could feel the pressure building. "Sarah, fall back to the upper level. Get your people clear." "What about you?" Jack's hand moved to his neural interface controls. "I'm going to give them a feedback loop they won't forget." "That's suicide. Even your shielding can't handle that kind of power." "No," he agreed, making final adjustments. "But it doesn't have to. It just has to channel it in the right direction." In the control room above, Victor Kane was shouting orders, trying to contain the growing instability. Jack could read his lips through the tactical display. "Push it harder. We're losing coherence." "Billy," Jack subvocalized, "when I give the signal, trigger an emergency shutdown of all containment systems. Every failsafe, every backup, everything goes dark at once." "But Mr. Morrison, the cascade effect will be channeled through my neural interface directly into their control systems. Trust me, Billy. Precision, remember?" The boy's voice was steady when he responded. "Yes, sir. Ready on your mark." Jack turned to Sarah. 20 seconds after the shutdown, the neural backlash will fry every piece of quantum tech in this facility. Be outside the blast radius." She hesitated, then quickly squeezed his shoulder. "The town's lucky to have you, Jack Morrison." "The town's lucky to have all of us," he corrected. "Now go. This is about to get very precise." As Sarah retreated, Jack stepped out from cover, walking directly toward the main chamber. Security forces raised their weapons, but he barely noticed them. His neural interface was linking with the facility's systems, establishing connections. That shouldn't have been possible. In the control room, Kane's eyes widened as he recognized him. "Morrison, stop him! Stop!" Now, Billy! The facility plunged into darkness as every system crashed simultaneously. For a moment, there was total silence. Then Jack's neural interface flared to life, channeling the released energy of dozens of quantum cores through pathways he'd spent years designing. The precision was perfect, the timing exact. The flash lit up the valley like a miniature sun, but contained within the hardened facility walls. When it faded, every piece of quantum technology in the complex was reduced to inert metal, and the minds of Pine Valley's citizens were once again their own. Above ground, the storm was finally breaking. But in the darkness below, Jack Morrison had reminded everyone why some technology was better left unborn, and why precision could be the deadliest weapon of all. Through the settling dust of the facility's lower level, Jack Morrison stood motionless as emergency lighting flickered to life. His neural interface was smoking slightly, its circuits fried but having served their purpose perfectly. Around him, security forces and scientists lay unconscious, their quantum-enhanced equipment now worthless metal. "Status report," he sub-vocalized, though he wasn't sure if the comm system had survived. "Mr. Morrison," Billy's voice crackled through with surprising clarity. "Power grids restoring across the valley. All quantum signatures they're just gone. Whatever you did, it worked." "Sarah." "Deputies?" "All clear," Sarah responded. "Civilians reporting normal brain function, no lasting effects. We're securing the perimeter and—" She paused. "Jack, Kane's not in the control room. He must have had an escape route." Jack's enhanced vision, running on backup power, scanned the facility's layout. Northwest corridor. There's a hidden elevator shaft leads to a surface bunker. He started moving, his steps measured despite the chaos around him. "Billy, get me satellite coverage of that sector." Already on it. Thermal imaging shows one vehicle leaving the bunker access road, heading toward the state line. "Mr. Morrison, there's something else. The Steel Wolves are mobilizing. All their members just got some kind of alert." "Kane's insurance policy," Jack concluded grimly. "Sarah, get your deputies to protect the town. The Wolves will try to create chaos. Give Kane time to escape with whatever data he managed to save." He reached the hidden elevator shaft, its doors partially melted from the quantum surge. The car was gone, but Jack's tactical display showed the maintenance ladder was intact. He began climbing, his movements efficient despite the drain of the previous confrontation. "Billy, track that vehicle. Where's he heading?" "Based on his trajectory, looks like the old airstrip in Johnson Canyon." "There's a private jet warming up out there." Jack reached the surface bunker, emerging into the rain-washed night. His Tesla sat where he'd left it, its systems protected by his own quantum shielding designs. As he slid behind the wheel, the vehicle came to life with a quiet hum. "Sarah, status on the Wolves. Moving into town from 3 directions," she reported tensely. "At least 20 bikes. My deputies are setting up blockades, but they're not coming to fight." Jack cut in, accelerating. "Down the access road. They're coming to destroy. Kane needs to erase any evidence of what he was building here." His hands moved precisely on the wheel, taking mountain curves at speeds that should have been impossible. "Billy, get me a direct route to that airstrip." Calculating. "Now, Mr. Morrison, my dad just called. The Wolves are starting fires. The gas station, the school." Jack's jaw tightened. Everything he'd tried to protect, the quiet life he'd built, was under attack. But this time, he didn't have to choose between his past and present skills. This time, precision meant using everything he had. "Billy, access my workshop's secure server. Authorization code, Sierra Victor 9, launch the garrison protocol." What protocol?" "You'll see. Sarah, get your people back from those blockades. Things are about to get interesting in Pine Valley." Even as he spoke, dozens of hidden systems were activating throughout the town. defensive measures he'd spent years quietly installing, preparing for exactly this kind of scenario. Non-lethal, but extremely precise. The first group of steel wolves roared into town, only to have their bikes suddenly lose power as hidden EMP strips activated in the road. The second group encountered streets that mysteriously became too slick to navigate, a special coating responding to remote activation. The third group found themselves trapped between suddenly rising barriers, their escape routes cleanly cut off. Holy, Billy breathed, watching through the town's security cameras. Mr. Morrison, that's amazing. Precision isn't always about doing the minimum, Jack replied, his Tesla eating up the miles toward Johnson Canyon. Sometimes it's about having exactly the right solution ready exactly when you need it. The airstrip appeared ahead, its single runway illuminated for takeoff. A sleek private jet was indeed waiting, its engines spooling up. Kane's vehicle was just arriving, the man himself hurrying toward the plane's stairs. Jack's Tesla screamed onto the airstrip, cutting between Kane and his escape route. He emerged from the vehicle with fluid grace, his tactical gear still smoking slightly from the quantum surge. "It's over, Victor," he called out. "Your cores are dead, your data's gone, and your distraction in town just ran into some very precise countermeasures." Kane turned slowly, his expensive suit soaked from the rain. "You've gotten soft, Morrison. All these years playing with computers, pretending to be civilized. You're not the weapon you used to be." "You're right," Jack agreed, moving forward, with measured steps. "I'm not a weapon anymore. I'm something much more dangerous." His voice hardened. "I'm an engineer who understands exactly how things break." Kane reached into his jacket, but Jack was already moving. The takedown was clinical, efficient, not the brutal efficiency of his combat days, but the precise application of force. He'd learned in his new life. Each strike targeted nerve clusters with surgical accuracy, turning Kane's own momentum against him. In seconds, it was over. Kane lay groaning on the wet tarmac as Sarah's patrol cars arrived, their lights painting the scene in red and blue. "You know what your problem was, Victor?" Jack asked quietly as Sarah applied handcuffs. "You thought precision meant control, but true precision?" He looked back toward Pine Valley, where his defensive systems had contained the threat without a single serious injury. True precision means building something that works exactly as intended, every single time. The storm was finally passing, stars beginning to peek through breaks in the clouds. In town, the steel wolves were being rounded up, their leader, Derek, already confessing to everything in hope of a lighter sentence. But Jack Morrison's work wasn't quite finished. There were still systems to check, defenses to reset, and a young man to mentor in the art of precise solutions. Sometimes keeping things clean meant having backup plans for your backup plans, and sometimes the most precise solution was the one you spent years quietly preparing, like a craftsman assembling a masterpiece, one careful piece at a time. Dawn broke over Pine Valley, painting the mountains in shades of gold and crimson. Jack Morrison stood in his workshop, systematically checking and resetting the town's defensive systems. The neural interface he'd fried during the confrontation lay dissected on his workbench, its complex circuitry telling the story of last night's precise destruction. "The FBI's cybercrime unit just arrived," Sarah reported, entering with 2 cups of coffee from Pete's Gas and Go. "They're going through Kane's facilities now. Found enough evidence to put him away for decades." Jack accepted the coffee with a slight nod. "And the quantum tech? Completely dead, just like you planned, though they're very interested in how exactly you manage that." She studied him over her cup. "They're also interested in some of your other installations around town. Those defensive measures weren't exactly standard." "Nothing about last night was standard," Jack replied, his fingers moving precisely over his keyboard as he restored the town's security grid. Kane wasn't just building weapons. He was trying to create a system of control, Technology that could rewrite people's minds, reshape entire communities according to his vision. Like what they wanted you to build. Back in the service, Jack's hands stilled momentarily. Similar principle, different scale. Back then, they wanted tactical applications. Small-scale behavioral modification for combat scenarios. Kane took it further. He wanted to reshape society itself. Billy Chen appeared in the doorway, his young face showing signs of the long night, but his eyes bright with excitement. "Mr. Morrison, Dad sent me to tell you the gas station's already reopening. The whole town's helping clean up after those fires the Steel Wolves started." "Community responds to precision," Jack said quietly. "Show people exactly what they're capable of, and they'll usually surprise you." He turned to a large screen displaying the town's security feeds. "How are those new algorithms working?" Billy moved to the workstation, his fingers flying over the keys with growing confidence. "Just like you taught me. Each system has triple redundancy, but with randomized activation patterns so nobody can predict the response protocols." Sarah watched. The boy worked with raised eyebrows. "You're training him in more than just physics these days." "The town needs a next generation of guardians," Jack replied. "People who understand that protection doesn't always mean force. Sometimes it means having exactly the right solution ready at exactly the right moment." A alert flashed on one of the monitors. Billy quickly pulled up the feed, showing a convoy of black SUVs approaching the town limits. "The Federal Response Team," Sarah identified. "They'll want to debrief you about Kane's operation." Jack's expression remained neutral, but his hands moved with increased purpose over his systems. "They'll want more than that. Kane's quantum tech might be dead, but the knowledge of how to build it still exists." He glanced at his fried neural interface. "They'll want to know how I stopped it." "Mr. Morrison," Billy said hesitantly, "are you in trouble?" "No," Jack smiled slightly. "Because precise planning means being ready for every contingency." He pressed a key, and complex data streams began flowing across his screens. "Everything Kane was doing, everything he was building, I've been documenting it all. Every illegal application, every violated regulation, every potential abuse." "Insurance," Sarah realized. "Protection," Jack corrected. "For the town and for the technology itself. Some things shouldn't be rebuilt, no matter how tempting the potential applications." The convoy was reaching the town center now. Through the workshop windows, they could see people going about their morning routines, helping repair damaged buildings, checking on neighbors. Pine Valley was already bouncing back, showing the resilience Jack had helped build into its foundations. "Billy," Jack called, "show me the core security protocols." The boy quickly brought up the relevant systems. Jack nodded approvingly at the modifications. "Good. You're learning. See how each layer supports the others, like the joints in a precision machine." "Or the foundation of a building," Billy added eagerly. "Everything has to work together, just like you always say." "Exactly." Jack straightened as federal agents began approaching his workshop. "Remember that, both of you. True security isn't about walls or weapons. It's about building something strong enough to protect itself." Sarah checked her sheriff's badge, preparing to meet the agents. "And what about you?" "They'll have questions. About your own technology, your designs." "Let them ask," Jack replied calmly. "I stopped being a weapon years ago, but that doesn't mean I stopped being precise about how I protect what matters." As the agents reached his door, Jack Morrison stood ready to face another kind of challenge. Not with quantum cores or neural interfaces, but with the same precise attention to detail that had helped him build both a successful company and a stronger community. The morning sun streamed through his workshop windows, highlighting the tools of both his old life and his new one. On his screens, Billy's enhanced security protocols continued their quiet work, protecting the town in ways its residents might never know about. And in the heart of Pine Valley, people went about their lives, safe in the knowledge that sometimes the best protection comes from the quiet man who chooses to use his skills for building rather than destroying. "Shall we begin?" Jack asked the entering agents, his voice carrying the calm authority of someone who knew exactly how to handle any situation with perfect precision, because sometimes keeping things clean meant being ready to explain exactly how you did it, and why some messes were worth preventing before they could ever begin. The federal agents filled Jack's workshop, their dark suits contrasting sharply with the precision tools and advanced technology surrounding them. Special Agent Diana Chen, no relation to Billy's family, led the questioning, her keen eyes taking in every detail of the facility. "Mr. Morrison," she began, "your service record is quite impressive. Special operations, multiple commendations, groundbreaking work in neural interface technology. Then 5 years ago, you simply walked away." "I chose a different path," Jack replied, his hands moving steadily over his systems, shutting down sensitive displays. "Sometimes the best way to serve is to build something worth protecting, like a quantum nullification system that shouldn't exist." Agent Chen's voice carried a mix of admiration and concern. "Our technical teams are still trying to understand how you managed to neutralize Kane's entire operation with a single surge." "Simple. Physics," Jack said quietly. "Everything has a resonance frequency. Find it, amplify it correctly, and even the most complex systems can be reduced to base components." Billy, who had remained at his workstation despite the agent's arrival, looked up with sudden understanding. "Like that time you showed me how a wine glass breaks if you hit exactly the right note." Several agents turned to study the boy, but Jack's slight smile never wavered. "Exactly. Precision isn't about force. It's about understanding exactly where and how to apply pressure. And these defensive systems throughout the town?" Agent Chen gestured to the security feeds still visible on some screens. "Non-lethal, but remarkably effective. Our analysts say they've never seen anything quite like them, because they're not weapons," Sarah interjected from her position near the door. "They're protection systems, designed to defend without destroying." Jack nodded slowly. "When I left the service, I made a choice. The technology I helped develop, the neural interfaces, the quantum cores, they were meant to enhance human potential. Instead, people like Kane tried to turn them into tools of control. So you built alternatives," Agent Chen concluded. "Systems that could protect without compromising freedom." "I built solutions," Jack corrected, standing to face the agents directly. "Precise solutions for specific problems. The town needed protection, so I provided it. Not with violence or control, but with carefully designed systems that respond exactly as needed, no more, no less." A younger agent near the back spoke up. "But sir, with your knowledge of quantum technology, your neural interface designs, you could have made billions. Instead, you're running a small tech company in a mountain town." Jack's expression remained calm, but his eyes carried the weight of experience. "Young man, precision isn't about scale, it's about impact. One properly placed solution can accomplish more than 1,000 brute force attempts." As if to emphasize his point, new alerts flashed across the monitors. Billy quickly pulled up the feeds, showing Steel Wolves members being transferred to federal custody. Their bikes, stripped of quantum enhancements, were being catalogued as evidence. "Speaking of solutions," Agent Chen said, producing a tablet, "we have a proposition for you, Mr. Morrison. The government is very interested in your defensive systems. Non-lethal, precise, highly effective, exactly what we need for civilian protection scenarios." "No," Jack replied simply. "We're prepared to offer—" "It's not about money," Jack interrupted gently. "These systems work because they're specific to this town, these people, this community. Try to scale them up, turn them into standardized solutions, and you lose the precision that makes them effective. Agent Chen studied him thoughtfully. "You're not just protecting the town, are you? You're protecting the very idea of localized, precise solutions." "Someone has to." Jack turned to Billy. "Show them Protocol 7. The boy's fingers flew over his keyboard, bringing up a complex display of interconnected systems. The agents leaned forward, their expressions showing increasing understanding. As they realized what they were seeing, every defense, every countermeasure is tied directly to community needs, Jack explained. The gas station systems protect fuel supplies. The school's defenses prioritize evacuation and containment. The town square's countermeasures are designed to minimize civilian impact while maximizing deterrence. "It's beautiful," Agent Chen breathed, her professional detachment cracking slightly, like a precision timepiece where every gear serves a specific purpose. "Exactly." Jack smiled fully for the first time since their arrival. "Which is why it can't be mass-produced or standardized. True precision requires understanding exactly what you're protecting and why." A quiet fell over the workshop as the implications sank in. Finally, Agent Chen straightened, tucking her tablet away. "Very well, Mr. Morrison. We'll classify your systems as proprietary community defense solutions specific to Pine Valley. No attempts at replication or broader implementation." "Thank you," Jack nodded. "Though I suspect you'll be back." "Oh?" Kane wasn't working alone. His quantum technology, his neural control ambitions, they're part of something bigger. And when that becomes apparent, you'll need someone who understands precise solutions. Agent Chen met his steady gaze. "And will we find you here still, running your small tech company in this mountain town?" Jack's hand rested on Billy's shoulder as the boy continued working on his systems. "You'll find me wherever I can do the most precise good. Sometimes that means staying exactly where you're needed most." The agents filed out, leaving Jack, Sarah, and Billy in the workshop's quiet precision. Through the windows, they could see Pine Valley going about its day, its people secure in the knowledge that sometimes the best protection comes from understanding exactly what needs to be protected and exactly how to do it right. "Mr. Morrison," Billy asked quietly, "will there be others like Kane, people trying to control instead of protect?" "Probably," Jack admitted. "Which is why we'll keep building, keep improving, keep making our solutions more precise." He turned back to his systems, already planning the next set of improvements. "Because sometimes the best way to keep things clean is to be ready with exactly the right solution before the mess even begins." 1 month after Kane's arrest, Jack Morrison stood in his expanded workshop, watching Billy Chen calibrate a new security subsystem. The boy's hands moved with growing confidence over the controls, each adjustment precise and purposeful. Through the reinforced windows, Pine Valley sparkled in the autumn sunlight, the town's subtle defenses now seamlessly integrated into its daily life. "Power distribution is balanced," Billy reported, his eyes never leaving the monitors. "Neural dampening field is stable at 15%, just enough to detect any unauthorized quantum signatures without affecting normal electronics." "Good," Jack nodded. "And the new alert protocols?" "Set up just like you showed me, 3-layer verification, with manual oversight required for any active countermeasures." Billy looked up finally, pride mixing with curiosity in his expression. "Mr. Morrison, how did you know? About Kane? About needing all these defenses?" "You had them ready long before he showed up." Jack moved to a secured cabinet, entering a complex code. Inside lay his old neural interface, now rebuilt and improved. Because precision isn't just about solutions, Billy. It's about preparation, about understanding that some threats don't announce themselves until it's almost too late. Sarah Martinez entered the workshop, carrying fresh intelligence reports. "Speaking of threats, our friends in federal law enforcement have been busy." 3 more quantum research facilities shut down in the past week, all with connections to Kane's operation. But not all of them, Jack said quietly, studying data streams on his main display. The neural control technology, the quantum cores. Kane was just one branch of a larger tree. You think there are others out there? Billy asked, unconsciously straightening in his chair. Other people trying to build what he built? I know there are. Jack brought up a complex map of interconnected data points. Kane's operation wasn't isolated. The quantum cores, the neural interface designs, they were all based on original research that others still have access to. Sarah moved closer to the displays, her sheriff's training helping her spot patterns. These facilities, these connections, they're not random. Someone's building a network. More than a network, Jack corrected. They're building infrastructure. Kane's neural control technology was just a prototype. The real goal is bigger, full-spectrum dominance over human consciousness itself. Billy's fingers flew over his keyboard, pulling up additional data. Mr. Morrison, I'm seeing unusual power signatures from abandoned military installations. Similar to Kane's quantum cores, but different, more refined. They're learning, Jack confirmed. Each failure teaches them something new. Kane's defeat showed them the weaknesses in brute force approaches. They'll be more subtle next time. Sarah checked her sidearm unconsciously. So what's the play? We can't defend every town, protect every community. No, Jack agreed, but we can give them the tools to protect themselves. He turned to a new workstation where complex schematics filled multiple screens. That's what I've been working on. Defensive systems that can be adapted to each community's specific needs while remaining precise enough to prevent abuse. Like what you built here in Pine Valley, Billy asked eagerly. Similar principle, but more flexible. Each community has different needs, different vulnerabilities. The key is teaching them to understand their own precise requirements. Jack's hands moved over the designs with practiced efficiency. Kane's people thought control was the answer. But real security comes from empowerment, giving people exactly the tools they need to protect what matters to them. An alert flashed across Billy's screens. New quantum signature detected. It's faint, but it's moving, heading west along the old mining roads. Jack was already moving, his rebuilt neural interface coming to life with a subtle hum. Sarah! Already on it, she replied, reaching for her radio. I'll coordinate with state police, set up containment points. Billy, track that signature. Any match to known configurations? The boy's fingers danced across his keyboard. Not exactly, but there are similarities to Kane's designs. They've modified the core structure, made it more stable. Mr. Morrison, they're learning from our countermeasures. Good, Jack said quietly, checking his non-lethal defensive gear. That means they're predictable. Precision works both ways. The more they try to perfect their technology, the more specific their vulnerabilities become. Sarah paused at the door. You're not going after them alone. No, Jack agreed, surprising her, because that's what they'd expect. The lone operative, the surgical strike. He smiled slightly. Sometimes the most precise solution is also the most unexpected. He turned to Billy. Remember those community defense protocols we've been developing? Time to test them, alert the town council, activate the volunteer response network. Pine Valley is about to show them what true community defense looks like. As alerts went out and the town's subtle defenses shifted to active status, Jack Morrison stood in his workshop, surrounded by the tools of both his past and his present. The quantum signature was still moving, its users probably thinking they were being clever, staying away from main roads and population centers. They didn't understand that precision wasn't about isolation. It wasn't about lone operators or surgical strikes. True precision came from understanding exactly how things work together. People, technology, community, all the pieces moving in perfect coordination, each supporting the others. Mr. Morrison, Billy called out, his voice carrying newfound confidence. The volunteer teams are in position. Town defenses are at full coverage. We're ready. Jack checked his neural interface one final time, feeling the familiar comfort of precisely calibrated technology. Then let's show them what happens when they threaten a community that knows exactly how to protect itself, because sometimes keeping things clean meant teaching others how to spot the mess before it arrived. And sometimes the most precise solution was showing people exactly what they were capable of when they worked together with perfect coordination. The quantum signature moved steadily along the old mining roads, its users unaware that every movement was being tracked by dozens of synchronized systems. Jack Morrison stood in Pine Valley's newly established command center, formerly the high school gymnasium, watching as volunteer teams coordinated their positions with military precision. "Third team in position," Sarah reported, marking another checkpoint on the tactical display. Thompson's group has the ridge covered. Chen's people are monitoring the valley approaches. Every access point is under observation. "Power signatures are holding steady," Billy added from his workstation, surrounded by monitors showing real-time data feeds. They're running 3 quantum cores, smaller than Kane's but more efficient. Neural interface signals are minimal. They're being careful. Jack studied the patterns, his own neural interface processing the data streams. Too careful. They're not just avoiding detection, they're testing our coverage. Each movement is precisely calculated to probe our defensive capabilities. The command center hummed with focused activity. Town volunteers, many of whom Jack had personally trained over the past month, manned various stations. Each person had their specific role, their precise contribution to the larger defense network. "New data coming in," Billy called out. "They're deploying some kind of sensor array. Multiple points, creating a..." His eyes widened. "Mr. Morrison, they're building a containment grid, like Kane's neural control field, but inverted." "Not control," Jack corrected, his expression hardening. "Isolation. They're trying to cut Pine Valley off from outside communication and support." "Clever." Sarah checked her tactical display. "Can they do that? Create a quantum barrier around the whole town?" "They can try." Jack moved to the main control station, his hands dancing over the interfaces. "But they don't understand what they're really dealing with. Billy, show me the community connection matrix." The boy quickly brought up a complex display of interconnected nodes, each representing a different aspect of Pine Valley's defensive network. But these weren't just technical systems. They showed the human connections, the way each part of the community supported and enhanced the others. "Look at their pattern," Jack explained, highlighting key points. "They think we're relying on conventional communications, standard defense protocols. They don't realize that Pine Valley's real strength isn't in its technology." Understanding dawned on Sarah's face. "It's in its people. The connections we've built, the trust we've established." "Exactly." Jack turned to address the volunteer teams. "This is what we've trained for, not just the systems and protocols, but the ability to work together with precise coordination, each person knowing exactly what they need to do, exactly when they need to do it." Through the command center windows, they could see more volunteers taking up positions throughout the town. Shopkeepers who'd learned to monitor quantum signatures while running their businesses. Teachers who'd incorporated defense protocols into their lesson plans. Even the high school science club, their technical skills now focused on protecting their community. "Multiple vehicles approaching," Billy reported. "Advanced cloaking technology, but our sensors are picking up the quantum wake. They're splitting up surrounding the town, just as expected," Jack nodded. "Sarah, initiate Protocol 7. The sheriff smiled grimly, keying her radio. "All teams execute Protocol 7. Remember your training. Precise movements, coordinated responses." Just like we practiced, across Pine Valley, lights began dimming in a calculated pattern. Streets appeared to empty as people moved with practiced efficiency to predetermined positions. To outside observers, it would look like the town was powering down, becoming vulnerable. "They're taking the bait," Billy reported excitedly. "Quantum signatures are moving closer, converging on the apparent weak points in our coverage." Jack watched the patterns emerge on his tactical display, each movement exactly as he'd predicted. What they don't realize is that Pine Valley hasn't gotten weaker. It's shifted into precisely coordinated defensive mode. "Every apparent vulnerability is actually a trap," Sarah finished, "each point drawing them exactly where we want them." The quantum signatures reached their designated positions. Through the command center's systems, they could hear fragments of encrypted communications as the attackers prepared to activate their containment grid. "Now," Jack said quietly. Billy's fingers flew over his controls, initiating sequences he'd helped design. All across Pine Valley, carefully hidden systems came to life. But these weren't just technological defenses. They were community responses, coordinated actions by people who understood exactly what needed to be done. The attacker's quantum grid began to power up, its energy signature building toward critical mass. But as it reached its peak, it encountered something unexpected. A precision-tuned resonance field, generated not by a single powerful source, but by dozens of smaller systems working in perfect harmony. "Their containment field is destabilizing," Billy reported, his voice tight with concentration. "The distributed resonance it's using their own quantum energy against them." Jack nodded approvingly. Precision isn't about overwhelming force. It's about understanding exactly how systems interact and using that knowledge to create exactly the effect you need. The attackers' vehicles appeared as their cloaking systems failed, caught in a web of interconnected defensive measures. Each escape route they tried had been anticipated, each countermove met with precisely coordinated response. "Federal response teams are 10 minutes out," Sarah reported, "but I don't think we'll need them." She was right. The attackers found themselves contained by the very technology they'd tried to use against the town. Their quantum cores, their advanced systems, all rendered useless by a defense network that understood exactly how to turn their strength into weakness. "Mr. Morrison," Billy called out, pride mixing with awe in his voice. "They're surrendering! Every team, every vehicle! They're powering down and giving up!" Jack Morrison stood in the command center, watching as Pine Valley's volunteers moved with precise coordination to secure their prisoners. The morning sun painted the scene in shades of victory, but it wasn't just a triumph of technology over technology. It was proof that the most precise defense came from people working together, each contributing their exact strength at exactly the right moment. "Well done," he said quietly, both to Billy and to the entire community that had made this possible. Sometimes keeping things clean means teaching everyone exactly how to work together. Because in the end, the most precise solution was building, something that could protect itself through perfect coordination and understanding. The federal cleanup operation lasted well into the evening, agents cataloging advanced quantum technology and processing prisoners. Jack Morrison watched from his workshop as the last transport vehicles departed, carrying both equipment and operators to secure facilities. The sunset painted Pine Valley in shades of amber, highlighting the subtle defensive measures that had protected the town so effectively. "Final report from the FBI quantum analysis team," Sarah said, entering with her tablet. "They're calling it the most sophisticated containment grid they've ever encountered. Not Kane's technology, but something new, something that learned from his mistakes and improved on them," Jack agreed, studying data from the captured systems. "They almost succeeded. If the town hadn't been prepared, if everyone hadn't known exactly what to do." "But we were prepared," Billy interrupted from his workstation, "because you taught us that precision isn't just about technology. It's about people working together, understanding exactly how to support each other." Jack smiled slightly at his young protege. Sometimes the student becomes the teacher. He moved to his main display, bringing up analysis of the attackers' quantum cores. They're evolving their approach, Each attempt is more refined, more precisely targeted. "You think there will be more?" Sarah asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "There are always more," Jack replied quietly. "People who think control is the answer, who believe that power comes from domination rather than cooperation." He turned to face them fully. "That's why what we've built here is so important. Pine Valley isn't just a town anymore, it's a prototype, a proof that communities can defend themselves through precision and coordination." Billy's screens lit up with new data. "Mr. Morrison, look at this. I've been analyzing the quantum signatures from their cores. The base architecture, it's familiar. Not just similar to Kane's designs, but to mine," Jack finished. "They're working from my original research, the classified projects I shut down when I left the service." His expression hardened slightly. "They're trying to perfect what I walked away from." Sarah moved closer to the displays. "But why here? Why target Pine Valley specifically?" "Because of what we represent," Jack explained. "A community that protects itself through precision rather than force. We're proving that their entire approach is fundamentally flawed." The workshop systems hummed quietly as they processed new data. Through the windows, they could see Pine Valley returning to its normal rhythm. Volunteers were standing down from their defensive positions, returning to their daily lives with the quiet confidence of people who knew exactly how to protect what mattered to them. "Mr. Morrison," Billy said hesitantly, "I've been thinking about something. The way we defended today, it wasn't just about the technology or the protocols. It was about trust. Everyone knowing their role, believing in each other." "Go on," Jack encouraged, recognizing the look of precise analysis in the boy's eyes. "Well, what if that's what they're really afraid of? Not just our defensive capabilities, but the fact that we've shown there's a different way, a way that doesn't need their kind of control?" Jack shared a proud look with Sarah. The boy was beginning to understand the deeper principles of precise protection. "Exactly," Jack confirmed, "which is why they'll keep coming. Not just here, but anywhere communities start showing the same kind of coordination and independence." He moved to his secured cabinet, removing a set of encrypted drives. "That's why I've been working on something new, something that can help other towns develop their own precise defensive measures." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "I thought you told the federal agents you wouldn't share your systems." "I won't share the technology," Jack corrected, "but I can share the principles, the understanding of how precision and community coordination work together." He inserted one of the drives, bringing up new schematics. "Every town has its own unique characteristics, its own specific needs. The key is teaching them how to recognize and enhance their natural strengths." Billy studied the new designs with growing excitement. "It's like what you did here, not giving them exact copies of our systems, but showing them how to build their own precise solutions." "Because the most precise defense," Jack nodded, "is one that grows naturally from the community itself." He turned to Sarah. "The federal response teams will handle the immediate threats, but the real work, that's teaching other communities what Pine Valley has learned, how to coordinate, how to protect, how to be precise in their own unique ways." Through the workshop windows, the last light of day painted Pine Valley in deepening shadows. But unlike the shadows that had brought fear before, these were comfortable, familiar, part of the natural rhythm of a town that knew exactly how to handle darkness. "So what's our next step?" Sarah asked, though her slight smile suggested she already knew. "We keep building," Jack replied, his hands moving over his systems with practiced efficiency. "Keep improving, keep teaching, because the most precise solution isn't just protecting what we have, it's helping others learn to protect what matters to them." Billy's fingers flew over his keyboard, already adapting their defensive protocols based on the day's experiences. Each adjustment was careful, considered, exactly calculated to strengthen without overextending. Because sometimes keeping things clean meant showing others exactly how to maintain their own precise balance. And sometimes the most sophisticated defense wasn't the most complex technology, but the simple power of people working together with perfect precision and trust. The night settled over Pine Valley, its subtle defenses ready but unobtrusive, its people secure in the knowledge that they had built something stronger than any quantum containment grid. A community that understood exactly how to protect itself through precision, coordination, and unwavering support for each other. 6 months after the attempted quantum containment attack, Jack Morrison stood at the newly expanded entrance of Pete's Gas and Go, watching Billy Chen calibrate the latest generation of defensive sensors. The humble gas station had become something of a symbol for Pine Valley, a place where precise protection met everyday life, where sophisticated quantum detection systems hummed quietly behind ordinary fuel pumps. "Neural dampening field is stable," Billy reported, his movements showing the confidence of someone who truly understood precision. "And the new community alert system is fully integrated. Even my dad's learned how to monitor quantum signatures while running the register." "Good," Jack nodded, taking a sip of his morning coffee, still the same simple black brew he'd ordered every day for the past 5 years. "Because it's not just about the technology, it's about making protection part of daily life." Sarah Martinez pulled up in her patrol car, now equipped with subtle modifications that could detect and track quantum anomalies. "You've turned the whole town into a living defense system," she observed, joining them near the pumps. "Every business, every street corner, every ordinary citizen knowing exactly what to watch for and exactly how to respond." "Not just this town anymore," Jack replied, gesturing to a row of vehicles parked nearby. Their license plates showed they were from communities across the state, their drivers inside the store, attending one of the regular training sessions Billy's father now hosted. "Representatives from 12 different towns this week," Billy said, proudly. "All here to learn about precise community defense." He paused, checking a reading on his tablet. "Mr. Morrison, we're getting some unusual signals from the mountain pass. Quantum signatures, but different from anything we've seen before." Jack's neural interface hummed to life, processing the data. "They're testing new configurations, learning, adapting, trying to find ways around our defensive network." His voice carried no worry, only calm analysis. "Which is exactly why we keep evolving our own approaches." Inside Pete's Gas and Go, they could see Mr. Chen leading a diverse group through the basics of quantum detection. Teachers, shop owners, local officials, ordinary people learning to protect their communities with extraordinary precision. "It's not what they expected, is it?" Sarah mused, watching the training session. "When they targeted Pine Valley, they thought they were attacking a single point of resistance. Instead, they created a template for community defense that's spreading across the region." "Because precision multiplies," Jack explained, moving to check the gas station's hidden defensive arrays. "When you show people exactly how to protect what matters to them, they naturally share that knowledge with others. Each community adapts the principles to their own needs, creates their own precise solutions." Billy's tablet chimed with new alerts. "More quantum signatures approaching from the south, but these are different, authorized frequencies." His face broke into a grin. "It's Dr. Rodriguez's team from the university. They're early for the demonstration." Jack checked his watch. The same precise timepiece he'd worn through countless operations, now serving a different kind of mission. "Good. Time to show them how true community defense works." They moved to the newly constructed training area behind the gas station, where dozens of monitors displayed real-time data from Pine Valley's integrated defense network. "Dr. Elena Rodriguez, A brilliant quantum physicist who'd once worked on projects similar to Kane's had become one of their strongest allies in developing countermeasures against neural control technology. "Jack," she greeted warmly, her team of researchers setting up specialized equipment. "The data you sent about Pine Valley's coordinated defense responses, it's revolutionary. You're not just stopping quantum attacks, you're showing communities how to make themselves naturally resistant to external control. Because the most precise defense," Jack replied, "helping them configure their sensors, is one that grows from within. Technology can help, but the real protection comes from people, working together with exact understanding and coordination." The morning sun climbed higher as more visitors arrived, federal observers, community leaders, even a few reformed former operators of quantum technology who'd seen the value of protection over control. Pine Valley had become more than just a town. It was a living laboratory for a new kind of defense, one based on precision and cooperation rather than force and domination. "Mr. Morrison," Billy called out, his voice carrying barely contained excitement. "The quantum signatures in the mountain pass, they're moving away. The new detection grid is working perfectly." Jack shared a knowing look with Sarah. The would-be attackers had probably expected to find Pine Valley vulnerable during the training session. Instead, they'd encountered a community more prepared than ever, its defenses seamlessly integrated into everyday life. "You've built something remarkable here," Dr. Rodriguez observed, studying the defensive data streams. "Not just the technology, but the whole approach to community protection. It's like quantum entanglement on a social scale. Every piece supporting every other piece with perfect precision." "No," Jack corrected gently. "We've built it. Together. Every person in Pine Valley contributing their exact skills at exactly the right moment." He turned to watch the training session, where Mr. Chen was demonstrating how even a simple gas station could become part of a sophisticated defensive network. Because sometimes keeping things clean isn't about having the most advanced technology or the strongest defenses. It's about understanding exactly how everything works together, people, systems, community, all moving with precise coordination toward a single purpose, protecting what matters most. The morning continued, filled with demonstrations and training exercises. But beyond the technical details and defensive protocols, something more important was being shared. Pine Valley was showing that the most precise solution to external threats wasn't isolation or overwhelming force. It was building connections strong enough to withstand any attempt at control. And in his workshop, in his quiet moments between teaching and protecting, Jack Morrison continued refining his systems, preparing for threats that hadn't yet emerged. Because precision wasn't just about solving current problems, it was about being exactly ready for whatever challenges the future might bring.